Hello and welcome to OpenCV Live. I'm OpenCV CEO Dr. Satya Malik. On this week's show, we welcome Rory Mitchell, a theater director and documentary filmmaker who tells us stories in VR and AR to show how he built the South by Southwest Festival Breakout Hit, The Tent. The Tent is an augmented reality tabletop narrative and a glimpse of the future of spatial entertainment. I'm excited to get a peek at the experience and how it was made. But first, as always, with me is Phil Nelson, OpenCV's Director of Content and Creative. Phil produces the show, and if anything goes wrong, it's his fault. Hi, Phil.
Yes, hey there, Satya. Good morning. Welcome, everyone out there. It's me. It's PHI-LLIP. I am your co-host with the co-most, the second banana, who's second to none. I'm also your plus one and only. You know it's Mr. Nelson if you're nasty, but you, my dear friends on OpenCV Live, can call me Phil, and I'm here to remind you of a few things that we do on every single episode of this here program. The first of which is a giveaway to you out there in the audience. Stay tuned, and later on in the episode, about 40 minutes or so from now, I will be asking a trivia question based on today's presentation from Rory Mitchell, and the very first person to answer that question correctly will win the OpenCV University course of their choosing. You can see what courses are on offer by going to opencv.org/university. And even if you don't win today, maybe invest in yourself, invest in your future with OpenCV University courses. Before we get started here, I just want to remind everybody that OpenCV is a nonprofit organization that produces open source software. And as such, we depend on the support of people like our sponsors, who I'm going to shout out and thank right now. Yes, indeed. Make sure that we're full screened here. OpenCV's partners and sponsors, we could not do this without them. ARM, RunPod, Intrinsic, FutureWay, JetBrains, RoboFlow, Hackster, Seventh Sense, Google Summer of Code, OpenMV, Orbic, the British Machine Vision Association and Society for Pattern Recognition, Tangram Vision, Amp Software, Intuitivo, Rerun.io, the Edge AI and Vision Alliance, and Big Vision, because every company needs a Big Vision. If your company benefits from OpenCV, consider becoming as cool as all of these companies are and sponsoring OpenCV directly with a financial contribution or by some other way. You can just go to opencv.org and follow the link to donate as an individual or become a member as a company. That's opencv.org/support. So please help us out if you can. We really appreciate that. Now, I think we're also taking questions from you in the audience there. Don't forget to chime in using the chat wherever you're watching out there. Or if you're watching on Zoom, there's a special little Q&A button you can click at the bottom of your screen. I think now is a great time to go ahead and get started. Yeah?
Yeah, Rory, it's your show. I'm very excited to see what the presentation is, what the experience, and how you built it. So let's dive right into it. With a short introduction, you can start, and then we'll dive into the experience.
That's great, guys. Thanks so much for having me. This is it's a lot of fun. It's really cool to hear that there are people from around the world tuning in to chat about this stuff. Specifically, this stuff being the tent, which has been a labor of love for me and my team for the last 3 or 4 years, probably. I'm going to give you guys a kind of a condensed version, a bespoke version of a presentation that I gave at SIGGRAPH a few months ago, which is called A New Dimension: Translating Traditional Film and TV Storytelling into Spatial Narratives. So if we want to bring up this, and then I'm going to kind of, Phil, I'm going to kind of flip back and forth between this browser window and the and some photos that are not in the presentation.
Okay. Sounds great. Should work.
We'll see how it goes.
Yeah. Hey, that's what we do on this show. We let it play out and see where it goes. So this is our filmmaking style on OpenCV Live, is set the camera down.
Right.
Well, okay, guys. So as you can see here, I've had a concept artist, Rob Taylor of TaylorMade Illustration, worked with me to kind of create what is my key art. for kind of my vision of what we're doing with this spatial entertainment stuff. You know, as mentioned, I have a background in theater directing. You know, I also have a love of history, and so I've been very taken with kind of looking at spatial entertainment as it kind of falls into the whole scope of you know, human performance and entertainment and kind of what we're getting out of it. You know, so what we have here is we have a Greek amphitheater, and we have some of our favorite cinematic heroes: Chaplin, Marty McFly, the Professor, Scarface, Marilyn Monroe, and then we have
Excellent choices.
an ancient Greek performance of I think it's Euripides. I forget which one. It's maybe the Fates. So
It's one of those names that you can slip in anything and people will not object.
They're not going to know, and the ones that do know will find something wrong with it anyway.
They're too educated.
Okay, so yeah, there's been a lot. I think there's a lot of focus in VR on the interactive affordances. You know, I'm kind of going to talk a little bit about, you know, why do we care about bringing traditional film and television storytelling into this new spatial world. Then I'm going to talk about the origins of the tent, how we came up with it. I'm going to show you guys some pictures of how it premiered at South by Southwest. Then I'm going to get into the nitty gritty of some of the challenges we faced in adapting what began life as a 360 video script, and then it became a traditional short film, and then we translated it into this 6DoF spatial tabletop experience. And then just kind of a little bit of theorizing and general techniques that we discovered over the course of doing it. So, you know, a little bit about me. I grew up here in Los Angeles. My father was a comedy writer. One of my earliest memories is a sense memory of the gravel crunching underneath my feet as I jumped up and down on the set of a TV show called Give Me a Break. That was built on a soundstage. And so it gave me this very fluid sense of fabricated realities, because they had built this whole house in a bigger house soundstage. And people came together to, you know, play and laugh and joke and tell stories. So I think from an early age, I had this sense inside of me.
Can I reveal my ignorance by asking a question?
Yeah, please.
What is a sound stage?
So a soundstage is where you shoot. So if you're shooting a movie or a TV show, you're either going to be shooting on a soundstage, or you're going to be shooting out in the world on locations. And if you're shooting on a soundstage, it's basically like a giant, you know, many thousands of square feet space. And you will build sets in there, and you'll have lighting rigs, and, you know, the entire crew will come together. A lot of kind of classic 3-camera sitcoms, which is what my father did, you know, are shot on these stages, oftentimes in front of a live studio audience, so actors can feel the laughter of the audience and respond to that like a live performance should.
Right. So it's similar to the, you know, when you go to Universal Studios, the set you see would that be called the sets you see?
Yeah,
those are called sound stages.
Absolutely, sound stages. And I can only assume that it's called a sound stage because it goes back to the earliest days of cinema and when they were recording sound. So they're built to kind of block out sound from the outside, and you know, all of that, you know. But you will construct sets inside of that, and I think you'd be kind of, when you start to see it, you'd be surprised at the number of like TV shows that you love that are, you know, like Mad Men, for instance. I'm just picking a random show. You know, like that. If you're like in Don Draper's office and you're looking out the window, they weren't actually shooting in New York City. They were shooting on a soundstage, and they had a giant backdrop of the city skyline that's just out the window, and it's lit. And, you know, you can control a soundstage shoot a lot easier than a location, which is why they're used.
Perfect. Yeah.
So this is just a little bit about me. I started making VR 10 years ago. I studied theater in school, and then I continued doing theater and documentary. I went to work at NBC Universal in physical production for 4 or 5 years, and then I started my first VR company in 2015. We've done work for all of these folks, and we've had stuff show at all of these. I'll point up this way because I see I'm in the lower right corner now. And which leads us to the tent. So the tent is why I'm here. The tent premiered at South by Southwest in 2024. It is a 22-minute AR fairy tale narrative built for iPadPro and recent iPhones. And the story is a very Los Angeles story. It's about what happens when a woman wakes up one morning to discover a mysterious tent has shown up in her front yard, and she's not sure what to do about it. This is a story of ethical activism. It is a story of just how difficult it can be to help someone, but it's told like a fairy tale. So it's got both humor and heart, which I think is one of the reasons it has traveled as much as it has. Since this slide was made, it's been to more cities around the world. And it's actually installed in the it just played at the Architectural Film Festival of Rotterdam, where they did a beautiful install at the National Institute of Architecture in the Netherlands, which is really kind of it's an honor to have it there. We won a silver medal for the best story narrative of 2024. Also, it's entirely self-financed. This was we did a lot of marketing work for client work over the pandemic, and we used that to kind of build a volumetric capture setup, which we will get into in a little bit. And then, yes, so don't do that. Do not self-finance stuff. But if you have to, then do it.
Sometimes said everyone who's ever self-financed something. Yeah.
Because of this OpenCV, we are running a sale on the tent in the App Store. If you have a recent iPhone, like probably iPhone 13 Pro Max or regular iPhone 14 and above, you can get it for half off. It's in 2 parts. It's in 2 separate apps because of the technological hurdles that we encountered with volumetric video being really heavy. But yeah, would love for you guys to check it out. And
so I have the link for the tent and AR story. What is the second app?
So if you download that, if you purchase that and download that, when you go into episodes, it will provide a deep link to part 2. You can also search for the tent part 2 directly in it.
Okay, I got my version. I got my download.
Why, thank you. Here's a little trailer for it.
Anna Brown loved her neighborhood. But her entire life was about to change forever.
Hello?
Because a curious thing had just happened.
Can I help you?
A very curious thing indeed. A small tent staked into the grass of the yard.
So...
But how? And why? And was there anyone inside? And what would Anna do if there were?
So this whole thing was built with photogrammetry and volumetric video. And that whole trailer right there is interesting because it's like the production of it is interesting. It's interesting as a story, of course, but from a technical perspective, that's us with iPads, screen recording an iPad as we're moving around the space and trying to convey the augmented reality-ness of the thing. Means that we try standing further back so you can see the environment around it. We even built a little dolly for the iPad to try getting some smoother shots because it's really sensitive to any kind of slight movement. So just the challenge of trying to convey and explain to people what a spatial augmented reality piece is is super interesting. And we'll talk a little bit more about that.
Did you guys shoot spatial video, or did you guys shoot regular video with the iPad and iPhone?
So it was not spatial video. The whole experience is 6'd off. So the woman is captured using volumetric video with 8 depth cameras, which we'll get into in a little bit. And then the photogrammetry is the photogrammetry, and so it creates a tiny world on your tabletop.
Perfect.
Let me see if I can share. Okay, so we don't need audio for this, so I'm just going to share this other screen.
So in the app, we would basically point the app to a tabletop, and the scene would look, when we look at the screen, the thing would be rendering, or?
Here, let me show you. So this is I just cut this together especially for OpenCV Live. And this shows just a little bit of the mechanics of the piece. Okay, so when we were at the festival, actually, you know what? I'll show you the installation at South by, because I think that will clarify some stuff too. Okay, so when we were at South by, we wanted to kind of build out, because it's a fairy tale, we have this classic English narrator who's kind of guiding us through what is kind of a dark story, but the English narrator helps distance us a little bit and helps let us know that we're being told a story. So for South by Southwest, we wanted to create a bit of a fairy tale feel. So the University of Texas at Austin, Michelle Haybeck built us this beautiful tree, a beautiful fairy tale tree that some of our sponsors were held upon. We had the tents, and we had some gobos with tree branches showing onto the tents. And then we had these, what we called kind of stone altars, but we had an image marker on top of it. This is Martha Marion, the writer of the tent, watching inside. And so the audience would, for the home version, what you've downloaded through there, it's going to be a tap to place function. But for the, because we didn't want you guys to have to print out an image marker at home.
Right.
But, we wanted a smoother experience for the festivals. So you watch part 2 inside the tent, you watch part 1 on these altars, and we built these. An artist here in Los Angeles, Amanda Joy, made these really beautiful gold frames for the iPads to kind of conjure this magic mirror feeling, right? So it both gave people something to hold on to, and the whole kind of installation was a really good, like, eye-catching way to attract attention at South by Southwest, and then to also kind of like blend the augmented reality-ness of it with a bit of scenography, a little bit of physicality to it. So you can see, this is someone watching it. You can see that there's nothing on the table, but the house is placed right there. Here's another angle on it. We had people watch 2 at a time a little bit, which is really fun because you can see what the other person is looking at. And then, okay, now let me just show you this. This shows the whole kind of placement process, and will give you like a better sense of the physical experience. I don't think you can hear this, but
we can hear.
So you pointed at it, the image marker wakes up, a little will-o'-the-wisp Tinkerbell flies out, flies down, and the experience begins. So this is now a fully 3D environment that's streaming by you.
Anna Brown loved her neighborhood.
Very slick.
Very, very cool.
Wasn't she?
And now you can see this is just...
Anna stood
see people moving
and the
around,
longer she
right?
stood, the realer the tent became.
So that is the kind of, you can get way high up, almost like a drone shot or a helicopter. And then you can come down and you can walk like, 10, 15 feet away, and the tracking holds on to it. You can see the whole South by Southwest environment right there.
Right.
You can still see. So this is the experience of kind of this movie you can walk around inside of.
That's very cool.
Here we are above it.
Yeah.
so you can really, it's a really magical experience as far as being able to go anywhere you want in this story. So let's jump. Well, this is just like a little bit of, we designed the environment in Unity. This is just kind of like some of our how we were imagining stuff. We made a backdrop for the thing. This was like my initial sketch when I learned that we were gonna go to South by, and I was like, okay, let's try doing this. This was more elaborate. Actually, installing a chain link fence was going to be too difficult. So some concept art that we did. So that is so it's not spatial video. It is, okay. How do I get this back to, okay.
Yep.
Okay, so that is, it's not spatial video. It is a fully 6DoF experience that you can move around in. Did that help clarify a little bit of the experience?
Yeah, perfect.
Definitely.
I mean, now I fully understand.
Can anyone hear me? Am I still here?
Yep, you're still here. Mm-hmm. Did you lose audio? Uh-oh.
Oh, wait, my audio went down. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Great.
Could hear you the whole time.
Cool. Okay, so did that help clarify the spatial video and stuff?
Yeah,
definitely.
Okay.
Perfect.
I turned my volume down so I could talk over myself, and then I was distraught to find that I was alone. Okay.
Inside baseball. Yeah, go for it.
And if you think doing a Zoom with screen sharing is difficult, try building a piece of spatial entertainment.
Yeah.
It's all very difficult. Anyways, these are some of our audience members around the world kind of reacting to the magic of it. One of the interesting things that we found is that kids, we had kids at festivals. This was in like, those kids were at the Busan International Film Festival in Busan, just outside of Seoul, Korea. Then we have folks in Paris and then in South by. So one of the interesting things we found was that, these kids who have grown up in 3D worlds like Roblox and Minecraft understand spatial entertainment much differently than older folks do, in that they know that they can like run around and go pretty much anywhere they want in the scene. Whereas it's been so interesting, one of my like deeper thoughts about this stuff is how rectangle pilled we all are, right? The rectangle is so deep in our brain at this point that for a lot of people, we give them the iPad and they stand there and they just hold it and watch it on the iPad as you're used to watching stuff on an iPad. And it's only when their arms start to droop a little that they realize they can move around, or we go up and we give them a little nudge and the whole world moves with them. And it's a really kind of incredible experience to suddenly be able to move through 3D space with our phones. And I think this is something that is not taken advantage of enough. The fact that our phones are able to move through 3-dimensional space the way they are and update stuff accordingly.
Yeah, it's funny. I grew up in India, and so people had access, like this is 30 years back. People had access to a camera sometimes, but most people did not have access to a video camera. They would see a video camera for the first time at a wedding or something, right? And when the videographer would come, they would all stand still, not move at all, right? And they would just because that's ingrained in you that as soon as you see a camera-like thing, you stand still, right? And
stand still, yeah. You don't want to move around. Emotion, yeah, that's exactly it. That this is like, we are still in these, even though we have had mobile AR for like, I don't know, Targo was like 2012 or something, or what was the Google Tango? What was the early
Tango.
Google?
Yeah, Tango.
Yeah.
And let's not forget Structure Sensor, which I worked on from Occipital. We actually, probably 8 years ago, made like augmented reality 6DoF experiences using the iPad before it had depth cameras. We built our own depth camera.
Incredible.
And ran into many of the same problems that you're talking about, where like people just kind of didn't know what to do with it. Like the regular people just didn't know what to do with it. It's still used all over the place for like making custom orthotics for like people's shoes, you know, if you got problems with your feet, or like trying on like clothes with a really high degree of fidelity, virtual clothes try-ons. But it never really caught on for doing like media, for doing like entertainment, and I always wondered why.
Well, I think it's. I mean, I think that even now, here, 10 years on, people are we're still at the beginning of like this adoption and understanding phase, and it may be like a generational. You know, this is a generational play, and especially as people make more elaborate. You know, I think one of the things that people who have been working in mobile AR are like, what we experiences can't be more than like 3 or 4 minutes. How did you get someone to hold it up for 22 minutes? And I think if you build something that makes people want to hold it up for 22 minutes, I mean, you take a break in the middle, it's 2 parts. So,
yeah.
But I think just as we make bigger and more elaborate experiences and make the value proposition for spatial experiences that much higher, I think that adoption will start to change just to get past this. We're in a lot of ways, especially with volumetric video, I think we're still in this, you know, this Edison era of pointing a camera at like a girl bouncing a ball, right? You know, it's or like a man sneezing.
Right.
Or the train coming at the screen, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, so I
Do
think
you
just
also have this experience for Apple Vision Pro or Meta?
no, not yet. We have not ported it over to headset. We would like to at some point. It would probably go to the Meta Quest first because of playback challenges with the software we're using.
Okay.
So I think, you know, from a storytelling perspective, and we'll kind of jump through this stuff, but you know, one of the core challenges is maintaining the illusion of presence, that the objects in front of us are actually there, and you know, and the cinematic language that we're all accustomed to, shot, reverse shot, editing, montage, cutting to a close-up, cutting back over here, cutting to a wide shot, tends to break the sense of presence. So one of the primary challenge we saw with the tent was attempting to find new spatial cinematic language to, you know, tell a story. And that, you know, as it says here on the slide, spatial narratives cede control of framing and montage editing, but it's freeing for the viewer to go through it. I'm going to skip through this stuff because it's just getting into like ancient Greek theater and the roots of why we love television, you know, because in basically like it involves us with the characters. We feel as though we can step into the character's shoes. And because of the way our brains and mirror neurons and everything process emotion when we see it, we feel as though we ourselves are experiencing that in a part of our brain. This is all kind of speaking about why we need quote unquote passive entertainment in VR, AR, not just like, you know, picking stuff up and doing a lot of fancy hand stuff and all of this, because actually watching other human beings doing stuff is something that is intensely active, you know, that is psychologically and physiologically complex. And it is one of the fundamental ways we both, you know, that in short, traditional Aristotelian dramatic structure and lays the groundwork for 2,000 years of cinema and TV and everything, basically every show, Mad Men, blah, 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 blah. All of this is rooted in this idea of catharsis, which is that by watching other people go through an intense emotional experience, we are able to lighten our own emotional interior experience, that our catharsis through either tears or laughter, it comes out of us, and there's a healing quality. And then it also gives us mimesis, which is fundamentally watching someone else do something teaches us how to do something. And so if you think about all of the TV shows and movies that you've watched that have kind of taught you how to live and how to act and how to behave in social situations, things that we've taken cues both to do and to not do, that these are some of like the core things that we get from just watching quote unquote passive entertainment, TV, film, all of that. And we need, I think part of the adoption of VR headsets and spatial entertainment rests in us providing some of these same gifts that traditional film and television give to us. And that's been difficult so far because we have not been able to really portray humans a lot. A lot of the stuff that's been made so far is beautiful and I love it, but it's largely rooted in, video game workflows that have come up and the kind of, 360 video and then eventually 180, VR, which is now the current thing for showing humans, real live humans doing stuff, has been, I think, one of the bigger hurdles to adoption, to move beyond gaming in VR, which we can do very well and is very fun and is great. So that is where volumetric video comes in. This is the one of the first volumetric captures that I did. This is me dancing. I'm an excellent dancer, as you can tell.
Obviously.
And this is using some software from a company called Soar, which was largely a depth kit competitor. James George and the depth kit folks kind of pioneered this form of volumetric filmmaking using Azure Connects. And so we were using another company called Soar. This is like the first I rented some office space in downtown Los Angeles. This is 4 Azure Connects and it's pointing at a cube. Now we're going to get into the wonky stuff. Because the Azure Connects are using like a time of flight infrared stuff, everything, there's a lot of any reflection can kind of interfere with it.
Yeah.
And it basically what it's doing here is it's getting a point cloud, combining a point cloud from all of these cameras, and then it's using the RGB of the Azure Connect to kind of texture it after the fact. This is us expanding to add 8 cameras. And some of them are low, some of them are high. You can see some of the interference. This is like the infrared feed from the software.
Right.
And so we had to like close all of and daylight interfered with it. So we had to close all the curtains. The problem with like 8 cameras is calibrating all of them and figuring out how it's supposed to look. You end up with occasionally your lead actor, an incredibly talented actor trained clown named Maddie Wager. They are a gift and incredible. And I did not want them to look like an ogre. So we spent a lot of time, in effect, like if the calibration is off slightly, you can go into coordinates and you can adjust them and try nudging cameras. You have 8 cameras. You really only need to mess with the front ones to get the face, but you try nudging them to get it to look somewhat decent.
So you change the camera extrinsic parameters,
Yeah,
it looks like it.
Yeah, you're kind of like nudging stuff a little bit to try getting them to like line up a little bit better. It's supposed to happen automatically with that cube in the middle, but that it's your mileage may vary.
Right.
Eventually, in order to cut down on reflections and create the space, we hung up curtains all around it. We ended up putting a rug down on the floor because my beautiful polished concrete floors were a little too reflective. And this is kind of what it took to actually, get the capture of Maddie. So here is Maddie in the space, acting in what would be like the final scene, and you can see her put into the final environment on the right side. She's in the bathrobe. This is we ended up reshooting a lot of stuff because it didn't work the first time. The whole post process on volumetric video is very time consuming. We were working with a company called Arcturus to assemble everything. They had post-processing software that would simplify the mesh, clean up the mesh, stabilize the mesh, and then covered the playback. Each of those phases had to go through a it's getting rendered in the cloud and then it's coming back. So it would take a few weeks to like render, one scene's worth of stuff. So when we ended up throwing out 3 or 4 scenes worth of footage, it was painful, but we had to do that in order because it just wasn't working from a main standpoint.
Wow.
So I have to pause you for a minute there. So you probably know my friend Jeff Powers then.
I'm not sure.
From Arcturus?
Is he at Arcturus is kind of Arcturus is kind of a different company now. So I'm not if he's there now,
Okay.
I may not know him because it's been a few years.
Interesting. All right.
Is he working on the sports stuff now?
I'll ask about it. No, I don't think so.
Yeah, totally. This is Maddie and I working in the space.
Volumetric video is so fun to look at and so horrifically difficult to shoot.
Yeah, it's a real it's super magical. Like I mentioned, because Maddie was a gifted clown, her kind of gestural performance and stuff is all was super, super compelling. Okay, I'm just going to go through this one really quick because it just kind of speaks to this idea of being rectangle pilled, right? So at some point in the tent, Maddie or Anna, her character, starts feeding the woman in the tent, and in the short film, in the traditional short film, it called for the shot of her peering out the window, out the blinds, right? And so I wanted to just show a picture of someone peering out the blinds. And when I Googled it, so many of them came up that I was like, oh, this illustrates my point even better. The extent to which person peering out the blinds is so baked into ourself that it is a cinematic trope, right? And I think that
give them the old Jimmy Stewart,
right? And I think that where this gets interesting is that when we were writing the short film, or when Martha was writing it and I was, we worked on the story together, and Martha Marion wrote the thing. It was based on her experience trying to help some people in Los Angeles who were unhoused and how difficult that became. This scene was kind of written with these cinematic tropes in mind, almost like one of the ways we understand this back and forth between someone watching someone in the front yard is through this. And so I think it's kind of an interesting way in which we are rectangle pilled, and in which these tropes start to inform not only how we tell stories, but what stories we're going to tell. And I think that's one of the more interesting aspects for me of spatial entertainment, is how changing up the language, the cinematic language, the spatial cinematic language we're using is going to change what stories we tell and how we tell them. So we had to come up with a new thing because we couldn't cut back and forth between now we see the eyes, now we see the sandwiches. So this is my DP and producer, Sebastian Ameline, going through a very elaborate sandwich scanning process. We ordered sandwiches, and then we scanned them, and then we ate them, and then we scanned them again in order to convey this sense of we are feeding the person in the tent and they are eating, but we never see them. That is the mystery.
Sounds like a tough job. Do you want to give a shout out to where the sandwiches were from?
No, that's okay. They ended up closing down that shop, and I was annoyed because I liked eating sandwiches.
That's a bummer.
And this is what it feels like in the experience. We are bringing them in and out using shaders to kind of convey this sense of this.
And the passage of time and
the passage of time. Yes.
Yeah. And is the idea here that the person is getting more comfortable and getting closer and closer to the tent?
Exactly.
Okay, that's very nice.
Yes, I love that you got that, Satya. That is exactly what my developer Millard Plitzner and I talked about, which is like, as they're getting more comfortable with this, they are putting out more and more elaborate things. Yeah. So this is I'm going to kind of blast through this too, because we're running on time, but this is just looking at some of the photogrammetry process that we did to scan these environments. The house, the main set, was about 3,000 photos from the air and from the ground. You can see all of the kind of camera positions that we ended up, that these are where all of the photos were taken, and then goes into reality capture, which kind of assembles everything. And then it went to our 3D artist, Logan Davis, who did a wonderful job simplifying everything and cleaning it up and making it performant in AR, because photogrammetry is very heavy. And in order to make it performant in AR so that the tracking works and all of this, there's a pretty elaborate post simplification process. Here are some more images. You can just see the thicket of camera positions on the right over there. Kent Bai, who has one of the oldest VR podcasts, just kind of called this opening shot really epic and spectacular, and it's very cool when you're in it. Other people have described it as a magic carpet ride. We've kind of shown a little bit of that already. And then here are just like a collection of other techniques we used. This comes from theater, where we put it on a turntable. The whole set kind of rotates around, and then we open it up. We use lighting techniques. I'm not going to go through all of these because since some of you guys are going to watch it, I don't want to ruin everything. It's still fun to be able to control it. One of the other things we used here is environmental storytelling, because you can get as close to the actor as you want. And so, if you get really close up there, you can see that there are all these Easter eggs in the environment that you can kind of discover as the story's going on. We use scale and proximity, I think, are some of the fundamental tools we have for spatial entertainment, being able to kind of get as close to the actor as you want. If you think about it, like when an actor is at human scale, that's kind of a close-up. When it's at smaller scale, it's kind of in a diorama, it's kind of a wide shot. This kind of is some concept art, again, from Rob Taylor, that kind of speaks about what we'd like to do as we have higher resolution stuff. And our next projects are going to use 4D Gaussian splats for people. And nice. So this idea of kind of using different scales together in the same shot, I think, is going to be really interesting. This is kind of just getting into a lot of stuff. I think that this is, one of the more, if you look at the whole history of human storytelling, going back to like cave paintings through the ancient Greeks and Shakespeare, and then all of these kind of early mechanical devices from the 19th century, where we were just trying to figure out how can we capture humans. We have always used the most advanced technology we have to tell human stories. And so the idea that the rectangle, our beloved rectangle, is the be all and end all of the whole of human evolution of storytelling, I think is probably wrong.
Yeah.
And so being able to start to return stories to the world, and also it's on a 125-year blip. I mean, there are paintings that were being told stories and all of this, but until 125 years ago, with the birth of silent film and all of that, stories were in the world around us. They were performed by human beings. They were performed around the fire. They were performed, actors acting all of this. Or you just like sat in the town square and watched people kind of doing stuff and made up your own stories about what was going on, about the butcher and the wife of the candlestick maker next door. So this is kind of the dream, is to put an audience feet away from incredible actors locked into intensely emotional scenes. And the audience is the invisible witness to the intimacies of the lives of others. We're really interested in kind of building out these location-based experiences. So we have kind of a mobile home distribution setup going with the tent. But then this idea of going to a spatial cinema like the folks at Excurio have built with Eternal Notre Dame or the Horizons of Khufu, where you and a group of friends put on headsets and physically walk through an adventure through time and space and what have you. I think is very, very, very exciting. We're kind of developing some stuff along those lines. Here are some Gaussian splats, which is kind of the next iteration of volumetric video, which we won't get into, but most of our work is involving Gaussian splats at this point. This next project that we'd like to make is looking at the life of an actress, an aging actress who was a star of the stage and screen in the 50s and the 60s, kind of in a reckoning with her troubled childhood, is gazing at the mirror and remembering her past life. And we kind of jump through time and space, putting the actor's feet away from you, kind of like an immersive theater piece, but we control the laws of physics. And then we have a romantic love triangle called The Other Woman that we're working on. And that's the tent and spatial entertainment.
Wow.
That's really awesome. So the Gaussian splat,
irons in the fire there. Go ahead, Satya.
Yeah, so I have a question about Gaussian splats. Are you literally using research grade code and making it, in your production, or are there tools that are mature?
So for the so there are 3D-GS, which are like still environments, objects. That stuff is at the beginning of being commercialized and is available. That's using Jawset's post shot, super splat. There's a lot. There are a lot of, and then for just handheld tools like Scaniverse or Polycam, you can scan stuff yourself. We scan stuff by just taking hundreds of DSLR photos and then assembling it in reality scan and then putting it through post shot. There's still a lot of the pliability of Gaussian splats is not as sophisticated as our mesh and texture work at this point.
And there are these artifacts that can show up sometimes, which
so we can clean up the artifacts pretty well, but it is still getting there. The 4D Gaussian splat for people is still very nascent, so that is the more research code section.
Right.
Okay, now we're going to pause on the presentation for a moment, and we're going to do everybody's favorite part of the show, the giveaway. This is OpenCV trivia time. So this is the part of the show where we give away something to you out there in the audience. We like to reward people for watching OpenCV Live, and we appreciate all of you so much for joining us every Thursday morning. One of the things we do on every episode is give away something. In this case, it's going to be an OpenCV University course. You can go to opencv.org/university to see what courses are on offer. And I'm also going to just share my screen real quick here. Today's episode of OpenCV Live is brought to you by Orbic. Orbic is an OpenCV member. They make a lot of great cameras. The Femtomega, the Astra 2, the Gemini 336. I've got a couple of them here in my workshop as well. Super useful little cameras for medical, for creating movies, for all sorts of great stuff. A great line of depth cameras there. You can find Orbic products and products from RoboFlow, OpenCV ourselves, and our friends at OpenMV at the OpenCV official store, opencv.org/store. We're going to be adding more OpenCV member products to this. And in some cases, if you buy stuff from this store, it actually benefits OpenCV through a revenue sharing agreement, or even just making our numbers look better so we can show these companies the benefits of being OpenCV members and getting their products out in front of you in the audience out there. So please go check out Orbic. Orbic cameras, we're a big fan, and we really appreciate their sponsorship of OpenCV for the past couple of years. So
I believe that Orbic Orbic is the successor to the Azure Connect cameras that we use. So we would probably be using those if we were trying to recreate that workflow right now.
Yeah, so basically Orbic got the rights to the Kinect. Microsoft did not want to. It's peanuts from their point of view, right? The revenue. So they basically Orbic has taken over the Microsoft Kinect project.
That's great.
Yep, and we appreciate their support. So this one, I'm feeling so every time I get ready to ask the question, I get nervous because there's a lot of people who watch this show, and they really pay a lot of attention, and sometimes they answer the question before I ask it, which is a deeply unsettling experience for me. So I'm asking all of you to please get out of my head, get back into your head, and get ready to answer today's trivia question. If you have won in the past couple of months, please do not answer and give someone else a chance to win. So we talked a little bit earlier about the types of cameras that they used here, the Azure Connect, and now the successor to that, the Femto line from Orbic. What sort of technology do they use to create depth images? What sort of tech do those cameras use to create? Ooh, we got one. All right. Not quite before I finished asking, but almost. The winner today is Peter Hodina, I believe, from Zoom. The answer we're looking for was TOF, or time of flight, which is a little bit different than, say, for example, the method that the structure sensor used or other cameras use today, which is sort of they project like a speckle pattern of infrared. The camera knows what that pattern is supposed to look like, and based on the distortions in that pattern, it can infer depth from those things. But time of flight is a little bit different. So yeah, Satya, do you want to explain to the folks a little bit maybe the difference between
Well, yeah. So the
different depth capture technologies here?
Yeah, so the very first, the very first systems that came out were complete stereo systems. So you take two pictures of a scene and then find a few feature points in those scenes and then triangulate, right? If you can see the same the same 3D object in both cameras, then you can triangulate and see what is the depth if you know the internal camera parameters, and if the two cameras are basically the calibration, we know the orientation of one camera with respect to the other. The problem with those techniques is obviously when you have flat surfaces, there is nothing to latch onto. So traditional stereo, image only stereo, they don't work very well. Then there is another option. You can actually still have the cameras, but you project structured light into the scene. You have a projector that projects a dot pattern onto the scene. So white walls, even though you cannot see it with naked eyes, the infrared part of the camera can actually see those dot patterns. So it's no longer flat surface. So that's another technique, right? But there is a third technique where you actually remove you remove the camera and one of the cameras, replace it with a projector, and the calibration between the camera and the projector. So you can actually get rid of one of the cameras and still be able to do camera projector systems. And that was, I think, Kinect. The first version of Kinect did that as well. And the final step now is basically they have time of flight sensors. They literally measure how much time it takes to get back. They shoot a ray of light, and they basically wait for to see how much time it took for the light to return. So that is time of flight sensor. Yeah, so those are pretty much all the technologies.
And unfortunately, the time of flight sensors do not make a little pew pew noise when they shoot the laser, but they ignored all my emails about it. I tried for you guys, I really did. We've got a few questions here before we call it a day. If you've got a few more minutes there, Rory, you mind sticking around for a little bit of Q&A? Okay, great. So the first one here is by email. We sometimes get emails, when we publish the info about the show in the newsletter. People send us emails, newsletter@opencv.org. If you've got any questions, we can answer. I'm going to go ahead and bring this one up on screen. From a user on email, for Rory, what surprised you the most about how people have responded to the experience so far, like in person, when you see them actually going through the tent? What surprised you the most about this?
I don't know if I was. What has been most rewarding is how much people want to talk about the kind of moral dilemmas that are kind of brought up in the tent. I think that was, we were very nervous before showing it at South by Southwest because, it is not a traditional impact piece, which would is supposed to kind of focus on the unhoused person and their experience. Instead, we were kind of focused on the woman in the house, the woman with the privilege, the woman with the house itself. And so we were, nervous in going into South by Southwest that we had centered the wrong person, but really that's kind of the whole point, which was to look at, and people got that. And I was very relieved and appreciative of how many thoughtful responses people had to the piece. And some of that we've actually, we've made a few short videos. If you go to themercantile.agency/the tent, we'll share that. There are a few videos, or the Mercantile Agency YouTube channel. There are a few videos that we made that kind of show some of the thoughtful responses that people have had to this fundamental question of how do you help someone who doesn't want to be helped, or who doesn't want to be helped in the way that you want to help them. And I think that is why that fundamental exploration of that problem, I think, is why it is resonated with people around the world as much as it has been. Translated into Korean and French, and now it's going to be translated into German as well for a show next spring. So fully 2 years after it premiered at South by, I'm still getting inquiries to show it to folks because there's a lot to talk about in it.
And on that point, I think I felt it was intentional on your part to also show the woman. It is from the woman's perspective, because the person in the tent is invisible. That's like a real world. Those people in the tent.
That's a metaphor.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. I think that there's also like a very I feel like this is another thing that goes into some talks, but just the idea of AR as a fairy tale thing. All of these face filters where you look into your phone and there is you turn into an ogre or a princess or whatever, or when you look through your phone, you see a little woman in a house on your tabletop. These are kind of getting into these traditional fairy tale stories. And so the idea of this woman that you never see, but who lives in your front yard, is also kind of playing into these, ancient fairy tale tropes.
Right.
Yeah, definitely. And folks can try out this new modern fairy tale, The Tent, for 50% off over on the App Store by scanning that QR code that's on the screen there, or by going to themercantile.agency/the tent. We'll also drop these links in the show notes and in the email follow-up on Friday, so everybody can check this out that wants to. I'll definitely am downloading it right now since it's on sale because I'm cheap.
Yeah, I think as long as you have like a recent iPhone 14 or above, iPadPro is really with any of the ones with the M1 or M2 chips, that's really
got it.
The greatest.
Okay. Yeah, we got a few more people scanning it here. We got another question. I'm going to leave that QR code up here for a minute while I grab another question. There we go. This one is from LinkedIn. How many people in total worked on the production from start to finish? About how long did the whole process take in total?
Probably had like 15 or 16 between 15 or 16 folks probably worked on it total over time. The script began in like 2017, 2018. Martha started writing it and came to me. We had made another 360 video, like an intimate romantic drama called The Visigoths. And afterwards, she had these experiences kind of trying to help unhoused people in Los Angeles. And so the initial script was like 2017, 2018. We put it down for a little bit. We picked it back up during the pandemic. We worked on a big photogrammetry project in 2021 and realized that AR photogrammetry and realized that we could use some of the techniques we had developed for that for the tent. And so we started filming the volumetric video in March of 2022. And then it premiered 2 years later at South by Southwest, March of 2024.
Yeah. All right.
Wow.
It's a labor of love, I guess. Would have to be.
Yeah, it's like I just want to see people walking around on my tabletop, and can we tell a story
This
that
is
way?
so hard. Yeah. I understand. We got another one coming in here from Zoom. What was the biggest thing you learned production-wise on this project, and what will you definitely not do next time? Like, what's something that in the process of doing this, you're like, well, we definitely don't want to do that next time. You have any tales of production woes?
Yeah, there are a lot of production woes. I think we probably needed a better gray boxing testing before we actually went into production. We were kind of just flying by the seat of our pants with it. I will probably not be building my own volumetric capture studio again.
It's probably a good call.
Yeah, that is, I mean, especially, I'm pretty certain we've actually been shooting some stuff recently and just using a single sensor, just using a single Azure Connect for some interview stuff. That is going to be in VR in headset, so there's not going to be quite as much like trying to run around to see the back of the person. But then I think we're probably, except for rare cases, we're probably not going to be trying to do mesh and texture volumetric video. It should all be, I can't say that. We will still, if we do mesh and texture, it will be at a real studio. And the 4D Gaussian stuff, we're still working on that too. So I think that is that is probably the biggest takeaway from the project.
Yeah.
Yeah, OpenCV ourselves are also working on some 3D reconstruction stuff these days. I think
cool.
We just did a whole webinar about it with our friend Gersimer from OpenCV. And yeah, I mean, we're getting close to time to go here, but I'm going to go ahead and put because people have asked, I'm going to go ahead and put the QR code back up on screen. Experience the tent 50% off on your iPhone or iPad. I'm scanning the code right now. You can watch me do it. Also, I voted. San Francisco has the best voting stickers. I'm just going to say it.
That's really nice.
Yeah, we have awesome voting stickers. So yeah, go ahead and drop your Prop 50 ballot in, folks. Also, scan that QR code.
Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. Anybody who has any questions, I'm very accessible and available and findable both on LinkedIn and Blue Sky.
Yeah. Likewise, we boosted some posts on Blue Sky, so you should be able to find Rory from the official OpenCV Blue Sky account, and you can follow along with what he's got going on next and all that good stuff. I think we can probably call this one a day. Any final thoughts for the audience, Rory? Thanks so much for the presentation today.
No, this was really a lot of fun. Thank you guys so much for having me. Please enjoy the tent. Please, make stuff. Just make stuff. That is it.
Purpose.
Thanks for that. Yes, make stuff. Make stuff. That's what we do. That's what we do as human beings. Satya, ready to take us home?
Yeah, thank you so much, Rory. This was a fabulous presentation. I really enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to enjoying the experience of the tent today itself. I've already downloaded it, and I urge our users audience to download it as well and check it out. It's amazing piece of art and doesn't cost much at all, right? It's really nice. Thank you so much. And thank you, Phil, for organizing this show. And thanks our audience for being here every Thursday.
Yeah. Yes, thanks so much, everybody. We will be back same bat time, same bat channel next Thursday at 9 a.m. Pacific time with our friends from Rerun. Nico will be joining us again from Rerun. They make fantastic 3D visualization tools. In fact, Rory, you got to tune in next week. This might be something you can use on your next production. Our friends at rerun.io. We will see you then. Until then, take care of yourselves out there, folks. Take care of somebody else if you can, and have a great day wherever you may be.